Ladies and gentlemen, do you actually need a realtor to flip land? Here is the entire full breakdown. This is pretty much everything you need to know about land flipping and dealing with realtors. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Levi. I'm a land investor, co-owner of MMC Land, where we buy and sell vacant land parcels. I also help new land flippers go and get their first deal and help experienced land flippers get more deals with better strategies. So without further ado, let's get into the video. When to get a realtor, how to find one, and more. Plus a real IRL case study of me actually deciding that I need to go with a realtor with this property and why. Alright guys, so when to get a realtor. So on high-end or infill lots that need MLS exposure, I would say that this is definitely important because higher end lots, generally, you're not going to be selling these off market. It's going to be hard to find a buyer. Part of the reason is it's a little bit of a trust thing. When something is worth a lot of money, people are generally pickier about the process being done correctly. And normally you need a realtor to make people feel more comfortable if they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on, 80 acres or, however much the land is. If it's worth a lot of money, I'd say anything above, especially over 30K, people definitely get pickier and realtors could be useful. And now going on to infill lots. Generally, people are buying land off market if it's super rural. If it is an infill lot in the middle of a city, it's a little bit different because generally people aren't going and buying land in the city to build on. They're generally just buying like a house, right? And if they are buying land to go build on in the middle of a city, they're usually going to look on the MLS. They're not going to go on Facebook Marketplace. You know what I mean? Because cities don't really have that much vacant land anyway. So these are definitely lots where you're going to want MLS exposure. Now, unless you are wholesaling to builders, that's a little bit different. But generally, if you are just flipping land, you're going to want MLS exposure on these infill lots. Now, if you buy a property with like any complex access issues, or if there's like easements, you might want to have a realtor, or also very restrictive zoning or like any other things that might lower your buyer pool. It's good to have a realtor to kind of help navigate the situation with the buyer, help them understand why maybe, a complex access issue isn't such a big deal. It's just good to have like another sort of word of mouth in their ear to kind of help them, assess the situation and realize it's not such a bad issue. I hope that kind of makes sense. Or expensive properties you do not want to sell on financing. When you go sell something off market, a lot of times you're going to get offers to try and finance the property. If it's something over 30 grand and you don't want to finance it, going on the MLS is going to help with that for sure. Now, how to find options, which direction to go. So what I like doing is I look for similar properties that you can consider a good comp and then get that realtor's contact info. I wouldn't just Google realtors in that specific city. Especially if it's vacant, like a vacant city, because, a lot of those top realtors deal with houses anyways. Especially if it's like a rural city, because a lot of those realtors, the top realtors with the best numbers are going to be dealing with houses anyway. It's best to find realtors that have experience with your specific property. Now, I would just reach out to the realtor, email, text, cold call, tell them you have a property that's similar to something they sold or have listed in the past, and simply just talk to them about it. You can get a lot of information this way. A lot of the times they're open to talking to you. Sometimes realtors don't really like selling land, but generally if you find one that has sold in that area before, a lot of times they'll be open to selling it again. Now, I like to talk to realtors, ask for pricing if they're very familiar with the area or they just happen to sell something, what they think that, the timeline's looking like, just any random questions to kind of get information to tell if they're knowledgeable. And then you can also get that information for yourself to help determine if, you have a good deal or not. Now, like I said, you can just go, like, let's say you have something in this subdivision. This is for sale, but you can also, I'd probably go on the sold comps and just click on one like this. this page is going to pop up once you click on one, and then it's going to look something like this. I'm using Redfin, but it should be similar if you're on Zillow or like whatever you're going to use. Now, generally, it won't have the contact information, even though it is public information. But in terms of this lady, what I would do generally, because that phone number is not going to be there, I would just copy and paste Casey, Santos Realty One Group Prosper BUDA. I would just copy and paste this whole thing into Google, and then you would find her information pretty easily. Now, you can do this with like 10 different properties and get a ton of information, but then, of course, you have to find out what the best option is for your property. So, guys, obviously, you're going to want to look for the realtor with the most green flags, and I'll kind of go over what those might look like, but that should be pretty obvious. You don't want to go with one that has a bunch of red flags. Now, another good option is the realtor with the best sold comp, especially if it was recent, like if it was a couple months ago. That is a huge green flag, even though they might have less green flags than someone else. Just because it's such a good comp, and in terms of timeline, it was close to when you're looking to sell a property, it could be your best option. Like if you really liked a realtor and unfortunately they just sold there like 3 years ago, it may not be the best option because things change, especially in rural areas. Now, I would also try to make sure that the realtor charges a fair price. And remember, everything is negotiable. You could tell them like, hey, I like you more, but there's another realtor that's charging me a little bit less. Could you match that price? And you never know what they're going to say. They might say yes. So trust me, everything with realtors is negotiable. Now, here are some green flags to look for. If a realtor is willing to help comp or walk the property for you before you buy it, that is key. This is like a huge green flag, huge, because that shows that they're kind of hungry and that they're very serious in helping you, right? And the next one is offering a fair price for their service. Obviously, you don't want to choose a realtor that's like really charging you. If they are really charging you a lot, that means they probably don't like doing land. And if they don't like doing land, they're not going to try as hard to sell your property. Also, a very big green flag is that they're confident in the area and they can give you a time range that they expect the property to sell. Usually that means they've done several deals or is just very knowledgeable. And now I kind of want to tell a little bit of a story pertaining to this topic because this actually happened very recently, and I was getting in contact with the realtor because I had a funder for a property, and it was a little bit on a timeline, so I would like to sell it in 3 months. So I just wanted to get it on the MLS to get a little bit of exposure along with Facebook. And I was talking to the realtor. They seem like the best company in the area because they're a really niche company and they worked around pretty much just specifically this certain lake and like the other nearby city. So it was super niche. I thought these guys would be the best. And all of their realtors were required to live in the area. Okay, so it really seemed like the best company. The price was not that bad. And they seemed knowledgeable, but the thing is, when I asked them about the timeline, she was really hesitant and she didn't really know when it would sell. She said land hasn't been really selling in the area. Now, this is kind of true. It wasn't like the best county, but I didn't really like that answer. And let me tell you why. I've actually done multiple deals in the subdivision very quickly. Like I had sold 3 properties and all of them have sold in probably less than a month and a half in that area. This one was a little bit more of a higher ticket property, which is why I wanted it on the MLS. And it was a little bit more restrictive as well. So a couple reasons why I wanted it on the MLS, even though I sold very quickly in the subdivision before. And her telling me that, she doesn't really have a timeline for it or that land isn't really selling, that just was kind of a red flag. So I ended up never going with that realtor. I ended up selling it on Facebook, actually. It's under contract right now. It only took me about 2 months, so not bad, actually. But, yeah, I didn't really like that at all. So that's kind of one thing that I would keep an eye out, especially like asking for a time range. If they're not confident in it, then they probably shouldn't be your realtor. So another really green flag is if they have some sort of buyer's list or if they're connected with like builders or if the property allows for mobile homes. This is a big one. A lot of people, or a lot of realtors in particular, have connections to people who make a bunch of improvements and then put mobile homes on properties, especially if they're close to the city or like in some sort of city with city sewer. That's like a huge one. A lot of people like doing that. A lot of realtors have connections to people like that. So if they have like any sort of buyer's list, it's just kind of nice. And especially if they go into detail with it, like if I talk with a realtor and it's kind of like an info lot, and she says, yeah, I actually have sold properties like this to people who put mobile homes on the properties, and they like that because of city sewer. They kind of like go into detail explaining why those people like properties like what you have under contract, stuff like that. So that's another green flag. So here are a couple red flags to avoid. Obviously, realtors who have not sold land before, and this is common. A lot of realtors don't deal with land, but obviously the solution to this is doing what I said and just going on the real estate platforms, looking at sold properties in the area. If they sold the property, they will have sold land before, so this isn't an issue. Don't just Google realtors in a specific state or city. So if they have listed another parcel, and if there's a very minimal description, or especially if there's wrong zoning info and like the marketing is terrible, like there's bad pictures, obviously that's a red flag, because that means that they're going to put in minimal effort with you as well, unless you like provide them all the right info. So very, very big red flag. So in terms of a real life case study, this is actually a property we just closed on. I don't know when this video is going to post, but I believe today is like the 13th of October, and I closed on it on like the 9th. So it's in Davidson County, North Carolina. It's a bought for $16.5 thousand, and we have a resale target of $38,000. So I actually just signed the paperwork that this is what we're going to list it at this morning with our realtor that we like. He has a lot of green flags, and he's actually going out of his way to pay for the drone pictures to get done, and it's going out of like his commission essentially. So he's taking care of that for us. And it's just outside of a decent sized city. It's a restrictive lot, and the target audience doesn't fit, your average Facebook Marketplace user. So it was just out of city limits, and it was a little bit restrictive. So I did kind of want a realtor, and I wanted cash for it, because it would be hard to finance that and get like a $12,000 down payment. You know what I mean? When it sells for $38,000. So I figure I would just try and get cash for it. It's in a super hot county, so I know that it will sell quickly with the realtors. A lot of builders in the area looking to build, so it just made the most sense in this situation. And real quick, we'll just go over why this doesn't really make sense to sell off market. Again, Facebook doesn't fit my general target audience for this to sell quickly. It's pretty restrictive. You need to build, and I'm not offering financing on it. Again, like things that are expensive, and obviously that's like a subjective term, but land that's like kind of expensive, I would consider, in my opinion, probably anything again over like 30 grand. This we want to sell for 38, so it is a little bit expensive. It for the size as well, definitely for the size. So it will be hard to probably sell this off market. Now, if it was like 5 acres for 38, people would definitely buy that on Facebook. But for the size, it is kind of expensive. And again, builders won't know that my property is for sale unless they just happen to cross by the for sale sign that I plant at my property. Because I don't have a realtor, I would have to go visit it in person, get the drone shots, and plant it myself. Now, the county also has a very high sell-through rate. I kind of touched on this, and I can see this through my land portal. And I can see this through the land portal heat map and in my comping due diligence. Everything is selling very quickly. So guys, this pretty much wraps up the whole video with everything to do with realtors and land flipping. When to get a realtor, how to find options, how to select your favorite of those options, any green flags to look over, any red flags to stay away from, and a real life case study of why I chose to use a realtor for a specific property. If you guys liked the video, make sure you actually like the video. Comment any questions that you have, or DM me on Instagram. A lot of people DM me on Instagram asking questions, so feel free to do so. You can see my socials at the bottom of the screen. And at the end of the day, subscribe so that way you guys are up to date on what I post. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you guys have a nice rest of your day, and peace out.